Okay, here we go. It has been a while,
It has.
and we had made it through the end of First Samuel,
Mm-hmm.
so we're ready for Second Samuel,
Yep.
all the way to chapter 2 before we get to a prayer.
So sad.
So this first prayer is David praying for revelation from God, which that's how we ended the
Which
last.
doesn't actually come until after Jude.
That's a different revelation than what he was looking for. He wasn't looking for
Actually, if
the
I've,
apocalypse.
I've no, I
You know
see.
that's what it's actually called in Greek. It's the apocalypse.
Yeah, I
It's
know,
not
it's
the
amazing.
revelation. Yeah, so-
I've noticed that if you look at the book names as kind of like spoilers and stuff, that's the only revelation in the Bible. It was kind of
Yes,
stunning
if
because
you-
people talk about things being revealed in the Bible, and I was looking at the names and I was like, that's the only one.
Well, that's because they secretly revealed things without saying, "Hey, this is revelation."
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
So, anyway, so in 2 Samuel chapter 2, beginning in verse 1, is there a reason you're hiding?
I like hiding. Hiding's fun. Be like, I'm not here.
After this, David inquired of the Lord, "Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah?" And the Lord said to him, "Go up." David said, "To which shall I go up?" And he said, "To Hebron." So David went up there, and his two wives also, Ahinoam of Jezreel, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. And David brought up his men who were with him, everyone with his household, and they lived in the towns of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there, and this is the reason God sent him to Hebron, there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. When they told David, it was the men of Jabesh Gilead who buried Saul.
Rar.
So this is after Saul's death, of course,
Now,
and David's the next in line to be the king. But God sent him to Hebron.
first of all, this is kind of an odd prayer because God directly responds with, hey, you do this and you do it like this.
Yeah.
Which makes it not exactly unique, but in a bit of a different class, if you will.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to point out more on just a interpreting errors in scripture standpoint, we know that by this point, David had more than two wives. And with the translation we have here, as he was reading through it, I was looking at it, and I was like, now, and his two wives also, if you don't know
Right.
context and stuff, you can be like,
Yeah.
so he only has two wives, and it's these two, and it's like, hang on,
Right.
isn't he also married to Michal, Saul's daughter? Why isn't she listed here with his wives? Shouldn't he
Yeah.
have at least three?
Yeah.
And so, just want to point out, just because something isn't stated doesn't mean it's not the case.
And also understanding what is being stated.
Mhm.
So when it says he went up with his two wives,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean those are the only two wives he had. It just means
Yes.
those are the two wives that he had that went with him. And so sometimes we have to be careful, definitely, to not read more into what's there than is actually said. To not read words like only when they don't exist in the
Yes.
text. And so, yes, Michal had never left the city where she and David had lived before he ran away from Saul. As far as we know, she stayed there. But we do know, I mean, eventually Saul gave her to marry somebody else, which, later David goes and gets her back, and
Yeah.
she's kind of not happy about that. There's some, let's just say they had some family issues. Of course, the fact that he married two other women might have had something to do with it too.
The kings
There's a
of
few problems.
almost every nation, ancient and present, have had family problems. It's a whole thing.
You mean they're not perfect people?
No,
figure.
no, not generally.
Oh well.
There was that Melchizedek dude. To
I
be
don't
fair,
think
we
he was
don't
a
know much
perfect
about
dude
his
either.
family, but I mean,
I don't know if did he even have a family?
he was a family.
Well,
Have you seen
he
that?
was a priesthood. He was the father of a priesthood, so to speak. But no.
Yeah. But have you seen the meme on Facebook where it's like the Hershey's bar says family size, and it's got the guy standing there saying, "You know, I think I'm something of a family myself."
I haven't seen that one, but yeah, family size Hershey bar. I've seen king size. I'd be like, I could be a king.
I
could definitely be a king and eat that thing.
I saw somebody post a snack size candy bar that it was actually snack size. It was decent. And
I was like, the ones they call fun size don't look like much fun.
No, those.
I mean, they're like more like torture size because they're like
saddening,
just enough to make you want a candy bar. That's all. So anyway, David certainly does get a little more information. Now, one of the things we have to be aware of is just because even though it says, the Lord said to him, "Go up," and the Lord said, "Go to Hebron," it may not necessarily have been that God spoke verbally to David.
Yeah, that's true.
It could have been the message through a prophet. They remember we talked before about this Urim and Thummim that they somehow used to get messages from God. So we don't know exactly how it played out, but the message that he got from God was, yes, go up.
Yeah.
And then, yes, Hebron is the city that you need to go to. Now, and I know it says, God said to him, go up, and God said to him, Hebron. But we sometimes assume that means that God was speaking verbally to David and saying these words in a way that he would understand them. But we don't necessarily know that, because there's a lot of times where the Bible says that God said something to someone, but he did it through a prophet.
Yeah.
And it was still God telling them and still God saying it to them, but it may have been through the prophet. So as far as we know, I mean, David was not himself a prophet as such, other than, he had inspiration to do the Psalms and different things, but so it's we just have to be careful.
The line on who's a prophet and who isn't, and where and how, and it's a fun one.
Yeah,
to try and mess with.
It's not that easy to figure out, is it?
No.
So, all right. Well, so I think we've covered that pretty well.
Yeah.
As good as we need to for the moment.
All in all, not a lot here that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, just that little bit of confusion about the interpretation and about the speaking, exactly how that speaking lays out, and we know. I mean, all the way back to the time of Moses, when God spoke, the people were scared, and they're like, "Oh, Moses, you talk to God and then tell us what He said, because we don't want to hear His voice again. We're going to die."
Of course, if you're the king and you're all right with God, and like Moses, you're kind of used to hearing God speak. I mean, Moses wasn't super scared of hearing God
was David
talk.
used to it at this point? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either. I'm just saying it's still a possibility. Your options are wide open on this one.
And that's the thing. Sometimes we try to nail things down as this is the fact, and this is the way it has to be, and this is the only thing it could be, when there are really options. There are really more possibilities there. And that's, I think, what we're trying to get at here with this section, too.
For all we know, in this one, maybe it was more than one. So in the one where God says, go up, maybe that was a prophet. And then, maybe that was the Urim and Thummim. And then David's asking more questions, and the Urim and Thummim stops working, and then God sends a prophet to talk to him. There's no telling.
Yeah, we don't know exactly how he... when it says David inquired of the Lord, that usually involves like going to the priest or the prophet to ask these things. That's what Saul was trying to do with Samuel when he got the the necromancer, and that is not someone who romances necks, by the way. It's not. He got her to bring Samuel back up so he could talk to him, because he wanted to inquire of Samuel what was going on.
Yep.
Because God wasn't answering him. So, but yeah, interesting thing here, and it's an interesting one. And then, of course, the kind of the end, just that they make him king here. But at this point, he's not king over all of Israel.
No,
he's just the king over the area around Hebron.
And I forget. Do you remember the name of the guy who is king over all of Israel at this point?
I think it's Ishbosheth at this point, Saul's son.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think Saul's son Ishbosheth.
So a lot
takes
of
it
people
for a little while.
A lot of people miss that one in genealogies and stuff. They're like, you've got Saul, then you've got David. There was actually one of Saul's...
It's already a divided kingdom for a
Mhm.
little while here.
Yeah.
And then David brings it back.
There was one of Saul's, I think it was a son, whose name was Ishbosheth, and he ruled for 1 or 2 years.
It was just a short period of time.
Yeah, it really wasn't very long.
Yeah, they worked that out pretty quickly. And of course, David was the one that was anointed to be the king.
Yeah.
But lots of fun things when you start getting into the kings and who was king where and when and what, and it gets pretty wild in there, and the timeline gets a little difficult to follow at times.
Yeah, just a tad.
So. All right, well, I think we are about finished with that, and we will look at another prayer from 2 Samuel next time we're back together. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.